Good afternoon, guys, and welcome back to the Purpose Nutrition Supplement Seminar. We're up to series number 3, and we're joined with a lucky guest. This is Will Davey from Primabolics.
Thanks for having me, mate. I'm really quite looking forward to this. We organised this. We've been trying to organise it for months, really, haven't we? And we've had all sorts of things jump in the way, but we're finally here.
Finally here, my man.
Finally here, so we can crack in, and we thought we'd put in a bit of a different spin on episode today. Talk on what we're here for tonight, later on, actually. So what are we here to talk about tonight, Jarrod? What's the go with our
So, guys, series 3, and I thought with Will coming up, we'll talk about something very special and very important. So, as you guys saw in series 1, we talked about the fundamentals of nutrition. As we got into series 2, we started to talk about protein. Now, associated to protein, we talked about muscle protein breakdown. And I thought it was very fitting with Will coming up this week that we'd start to discuss everything to do with our hormone cortisol.
Beautiful.
So everything to do with stress, guys. And stress will tie into the relation of the protein, and we'll get more into it as we get along with this series. But I thought it was a perfect fit just following after the protein episode. So Will is a man of knowledge when it comes to stress. Now, just to give you guys a bit of a background on why Will is such a knowledgeable man when it comes to the stress area. So obviously Will, the founder of the Primabolics range. If you guys haven't seen it, make sure you jump on our website and check it out, or even go and follow Primabolics and have a look at all their products. But one of the most popular products that we pump through here at Purpose Nutrition, and I personally use myself and value, is Restore. And I'll let Will touch on a little bit about Restore, as he will know more about it than what I personally do.
It's a godsend, mate. Restore's been the only thing keeping a lot of people kicking, I think, in a very modern, busy, crazy, hectic lifestyles we all lead. And that's I think that's a really good sort of prefacing to why we're talking about cortisol today, why we're talking about a stress hormone when we're talking about people having busy lives, having so much on. And it's really funny, we're here actually tonight, and you'll see a lot of content coming out after this video on our seminar we're having here this evening, all about the adrenal space, all about stress, its stress's impacts, how to manage stress with lifestyle hacks and supplementally. So in this video we're going to go through briefly I guess an overview of how our body actually reacts to stressors, and not just mentally perceived stress. It can be things like overtraining, it can be under eating, it can be poor sleep quality, alcohol consumption, it can be high demand jobs, families, commitments. All these things are stressors. So we're not just talking about mental stress, just to clear that up at the start of the video. It's anything that puts our body away from a place of balance, really. So anything that can contribute to a bit of head noise throughout the day really is what we're going to use today loosely as the term of a stressor. And we're going to go through basically the symptom pictures. If you're sitting at home watching this, what to look for if stress hormones are impacting you currently, if these things are relevant to you currently, and then how to sort of help with those ideally. So I guess without further ado, we should probably run through a bit of an overview of cortisol and how it works in our body.
Yeah, absolutely. So guys, so cortisol, stress, you guys are probably thinking stress. You guys know what stress is because we feel it. Our lives are getting busier. With social media today, and just the world that we're living in now is everything's so fast-paced and so quick. And as a result, we are heightened with stress, and also as a result, we're also heightened with anxiety. You guys understand what the feeling of stress is, as obviously we experience, but do we actually fully understand what stress is and what is happening in a biochemical relation?
More than likely not. So what happens is essentially we've got our body is constantly looking through our environment, scanning for things, because our bodies are designed to survive and adapt. We're very adaptive animals, humans. So we're always scanning our environment, looking for things that are a threat basically, and deciding whether they are or aren't. So our body is constantly in a state of scanning our environment. Now, all these different things, that might be a stressful phone call from a boss or a spouse or your partner. It might be one too many coffees throughout the day, having too many stimulants, whatever it might be. These sort of things come in, and our body's perceiving these I suppose insults to our nervous system. Now what's happening is our body doesn't know the difference between a life-threatening stress and just a stressful phone call from a boss or your partner, or having one too many coffees throughout the day, or having broken sleep that night, and having these sort of things are all very, very, our body takes them all on board as a stress regardless, and has the same response, which is to put out a hormone called cortisol. Now cortisol, your body's, it's technically your body's anti-stress hormone. It's meant to come out and switch off a lot of things, but I guess with our crazy lifestyles that Jarrod was talking about that we have now, we have so much on with with very high-paced lifestyles with kids and work and family and training and diet, nutrition, and trying to do all the right things. We find that typically we're having more and more of this cortisol secreted because we're constantly being perceived as threats in our environment. We're always seeing these stresses bombard us, and we're always putting out lots and lots of cortisol. So what we're going to go through is, I guess, symptom pictures to know if this is something that you're experiencing right now. We're going to look at what would it look like to you at home watching this video if you are experiencing stresses and might not be aware of it. What are some of the symptom pictures that you'll see? So I guess with your clients, Joe, what do you see as some obvious signs when people are under stress? Where do you sort of look for?
Yeah, so stress is probably one of the most common and the biggest thing that we see a lot now. With the tying of nutrition and the training application, there's only so much you can be done, or that can be done, I should say, to minimize our stress or even to maximize results. At some point, we need to look external to our environment, and it's not necessarily coming down to our supplementation use, our training, or our nutrition principles. Sometimes there's more factors that go out, and in this instance, it's cortisol. Now, a lot of times when it comes to individuals not progressing in the gym, not progressing in their muscle gain or their weight loss, sometimes we need to pull ourselves out and analyze, okay, maybe it's not the individual's compliance. Okay, maybe it's not the nutrition. Why? Because all the data lines up, everything meets. So what could it possibly be? And then that's where we look at, okay, what's going on? And simple factors like lack of appetite. That's a huge one we see, especially in people obtaining muscle growth. Appetite, because obviously you're pushing food so high up that the body's ability to stay sensitive and adaptive becomes reduced as a result of cortisol or as stress. Stress hormone is very common to shut down our appetite in most cases. And digestion too, actually. So not only are you not feeling hungry at all, it's usually also that when you do eat, you're having bloating. You're finding distension or some sort of digestive issues. Quite commonly as well with foods that you might not have previously, things like dairy, things like gluten, that might not have been a problem normally. When you find during periods of high stress, all of a sudden these food groups are causing you a lot of distress digestively. So that's a really good one. Appetite suppression is massive. And we see this as a big thing as one of the main sources of stress for a lot of people is under-eating. Yes.
I remember in your series 1 where you did the foundational nutritional sort of episode there, and under-eating for your body's energy requirements is so common. Yes. And that's a massive source of stress because your body has your body has a certain energy amount of calories that it needs to maintain body temperature, have organs functioning, have your brain firing, have all these cellular reactions happening, basically to maintain your function. You need a certain amount of energy. If you're not meeting that, in the short term you will lose body weight, and that's some people's goal, and that's great. But in a more chronic sense, when this is going on for weeks and months and years, our metabolism takes a massive hit from that, and our body also is in a state of stress because it doesn't have the resources and the nutrients it needs to perform its task. So whilst we're on the topic of appetite suppression, and that's a really, really common cause there. So people under eating in the first place, driving up stress. The stress then suppresses the appetite further, and you've got this really vicious cycle where people are living on basically zero food, saying, "Oh, I'm not hungry, I'm cool," and everyone on the line is saying, "Oh, but rely on intuitive eating though." Well, it's like, well, you'll never know what your body's energy demands are based on intuition if you're overridden with these stress hormones. So
yes, absolutely, and that's a huge one that we see, especially in the female market.
Yes.
With female clientele, we find that a lot of females are eating 12,000, not even 1,500 calories, and they're not hungry.
Yeah, they're doing hours of cardio a day. Their energy output is huge. Like they're doing hours and hours of physical exercise a week between the weights room and the cardio, and they're still having these. And they're finding they're pushing food down to hit 1,500 calories, and you're like, guys, that should be a big breakfast. Like that's not a daily calorie intake when you're training as much as you guys are. So, and that circles in beautifully to another source of stressor, which is in the training world. Now, training is a really necessary and great stress on our body. What it does, it's a short-term payoff for a long-term reward. It builds resilience over time, and it helps us actually deal with stress better. But in the short term, we also need to look at our training load as well for it. But looking at the symptom pictures, we've got ourselves there, the appetite suppression, digestive and bloating issues as well when we are eating. Now, there's also, I find, poor concentration span and foggy headedness as well.
Yes.
Comes along very, very hand in hand with stress. If anyone who's had a few broken nights sleep or had a lot going on at work, you might find that you're multitasking but not finishing any one task. You've got a million tabs open on your computer at work, but you're not finishing any one of them off. You send a text message, you look away, you forget who you've texted. You put your keys down, you walk off, you forget where you put your keys.
It's a daily thing.
It's a daily thing. I did it on the way here. So like these are all really common sort of symptoms. Poor concentration, poor short-term memory, poor foggy-headedness as well. Really, really common. And alongside those as well, usually a lot of mood variability, anxiety, stress, a feeling of just general worry, a feeling of just something's not right. Whether it's this running on gut feeling, this gut intuition that something's wrong. That's a really common one we see too. Where people just really struggle to switch off. They might be physically exhausted after a big day. They hit the couch and they're just completely just zonked, but mentally they're just still worrying about things and they just can't switch off. That's probably one of the biggest ones I see with people is when I'm looking if cortisol is an issue in their life, if stress is a big part of their life, I ask how do they go switching off at night? How are they going when their head hits the pillow at night? How long does it take them to get to sleep? Are they laying there thinking about the day they've just had? Are they worried about that email they shouldn't have sent, or that person they should have called, or tomorrow I've got this on and that on, and if they're laying there for an hour, 2 hours. Other people who have been literally who are getting into bed at 9, they're literally not falling asleep until midnight. 3 hours of just tossing, turning, thinking.
It's very common.
It's like torture. There's poor people there, they just can't switch off in there. Their body's just drained and fried, and they just can't turn off. So, what's happening here is essentially this is leading into another state of sleep dysfunction too. So the sleep is probably the best odometer, I guess, of how your body's running. It's the best idea of seeing how you're going. If you're getting a deep, restful sleep at night, you're switching off well, and you're getting to sleep fast, and you're waking up refreshed, that's what we want to see. But it happens with basically no one. Pretty much everyone that we deal with, they're taking a long time to switch off because they're running hot from the day. Their mind won't switch off. When they are getting to sleep, they're not having much deep sleep or REM sleep. They're tossing and turning. They wake up to go to the toilet throughout the night. And when they do wake up, a lot of the time they're reaching for coffee straight away because they feel like they haven't slept.
Or first of all, they snooze their alarm 10 times because they're so drowsy.
Yes, the old snooze function gets an absolute punishing in the morning. So we see that very commonly too.
With a combination of being lazy too, but most of the time.
Most of the time, it's just they're drained. They've had a shit sleep. They think they've had, you might have been in bed for 8 hours, but you've probably only had decent sleep for an hour or two of that. You've had, if you look at if anyone has a sleep tracker at home or an Apple Watch or a smartwatch, do yourself a favour, jump on, have a look. If you've got a higher percentage of your light sleep or awake sleep, if your deep sleep and REM sleep isn't in a 20 to 25% of your total sleep, chances are stressors are impacting your ability to switch off and sleep deeply at night. So I'd definitely say, poor sleep quality, not being able to switch off, waking up tired, poor concentration, poor short-term memory, foggy-headedness. These are all super classic symptoms. And I'll let you touch on the physical ones. What we see when people are stressed in their actual physique, their body. What do you see when clients are really struggling with cortisol? What do you see most obviously? Yeah,
it's pretty hard to judge someone or look at a individual and identify their stresses if they're unregulated. And when I talk about unregulated, we talk about chopping and changing their daily routines. They've got no form of consistency or discipline or any baseline to go off. So when I talk about that, I mean eating regularly on the same food plan or eating the same macros or regular sleep. If you're constantly up and down, training, not training, cardio, weight, you've got no routine or any form of structure in your lifestyle, then it is going to be nearly impossible to even rule out that stress is the problem. So what we want to look at is, especially in clients that we work with who are very well regulated, once we get them down to a decent body fat, we get them regulated, even if you are holding well above 20% body fat and you're well regulated, it is very easy to depict whether stress is a huge impact. Now, reason being is if you're fluctuating up and down, and for ladies, if you're not in your menstrual cycle, whether you're week 3, which is your ovulation time, or week 1, which is actually your menstruation period time, if you're not in between those phases and your weight is fluctuating 10% of your weight, or even 2 kilos up and down in a matter of a day, and you're being consistent on the food and your training and nothing drastic has changed, then pretty well that's going to be a form of stress. We see it very common where people are just jumping up and down in big lumps on scales. We see it in their face, we see it in their body. Are you feeling soft and pudgy? Females, it's a little bit different. We've got to work around your menstrual cycles, and that's just a whole nother ball game. But males especially, you're a lot easier to tell. Are you holding it down in your lower stomach, lower back? under the arms. Are you feeling a bit more pudgy than normal on a regular day? Sometimes if I don't have sleep, I wake up and I look at myself
just
and I'm
fluidy, just soft like a sack of potatoes, and you look at it and it's such a pain because it's a very powerful hormone that plays with our. A lot of time it actually increases blood pressure, it increases blood volume, and it also holds fluid because it's a survival mechanism actually for us. So like this cortisol is a survival hormone. It's always trying to get us out of trouble's way, decide if we're in flight or fight, and then give us the resources to deal with it. And one of those things is it will try and increase fluid, hold fat and fluid and store it in around our internal organs, and particularly around the abdomen. So one of the obvious signs too is lower stomach, like you said, super common. If you're someone if you're dieting, you've got that consistency you're speaking of in your lifestyle, everything's going well, but you're just lower stomach just won't move. It's just really stubbornly stuck there. 9 times out of 10, that's cortisol. Because what it's doing is it's trying to basically break down muscle in other areas to give you fuel to burn because it thinks you're in flight or fight. And then with those resources, it's also storing them in and around our internal organs with visceral fat, which is sort of an internal fat, and also trying to increase fluid retention as well. So we're holding fat, we're holding fluid in and around our midsection. So very, very commonly what's happening is the bulk of our muscle mass from our arms and legs in particular is being broken down. So you'll see that you might find it hard to build muscle in your legs or in your extremities and arms, but you're finding it really easy to get a spare tire. That's a really common sort of symptom picture as well of cortisol. So physically, if you find that you find it hard to build muscle, recovery sucks, and you're finding DOMs are sticking around longer than usual, muscle is you're not progressing workout to workout, you're plateauing pretty hard too, and if you're not, you might be hitting some progress and then just plateau regularly and really having to sort of readjust quite frequently. They're all sort of more physical manifestations of this as well. So
yeah, and another thing, just to touch on with the training application, guys, is a thing that you need to remember is cortisol is a steroid hormone that creates breakdown in the body. So when we train, cortisol is the only hormone that will ever break down your muscle proteins. So when we're training, we're initiating cortisol. Obviously, depending on the length, the durations of your times of your training, the intensity, obviously it's going to affect the recovery curve or the depth. So when I talk about that, right, we're sitting on our baseline, which is our homeostasis or balance. All right, whenever we train and the stimulus is applied, we dip below, and that's what creates our recovery process. If you're not eating adequate calories, like we've been talking about, if you're not, getting a good night's sleep, you're not looking after your hydration, you're not allowing adequate training recovery, like if you're training stupid or just doing every single day, that depth is never going to come back up to this baseline of balance where we can move forward and super compensate into a progressive measure. You're always going to be down below your baseline, which is not what you want, and hence why we're saying that cortisol will keep you down and delay your recovery.
That's a really good way of actually saying it. You're digging yourself a hole. So I guess the whole goal in any type of fitness environment is we're trying to progress. So what it might mean is we temporarily put ourselves into a deficit, whether it be training intensely and breaking down muscle tissue, getting to here, to progress to here. Now what's happening though is when we've got all these stresses going on, we're really burning the candle at both ends. We're breaking down to here and recovering to here, and we're never quite even reaching where we're not really ever getting to a point where we're progressing or really getting past that. We're more often than not, we're overreaching. We're really burning out. And in a normal environment, it's probably fine when you've got everything consistent, you're dealing with stresses, and you have enough calories. We see it a lot when people are dieting though, and particularly when people are doing their own diets. Like if just Ma and Pa Joe are doing a diet and they're trying out the keto or carnivore or Atkins diet or soup diets or fasting. These things something drastic you'll see in the media where you just cut calories hugely, fast with lemon water and detoxes and all these sort of stuff. These sort of protocols people are doing yo-yo dieting. You'll see it all the time where they're cutting calories right down, and they're just getting hammering into the ground, and they're never getting out of that hole, and it just digs a deeper and deeper hole. So what we try and do is come up with some good lifestyle hacks that we thought we'd share with you, and then some supplemental ones as well, because in a perfect world we wouldn't have these stresses. We'd be able to go about our days and live quite happily and everything would be all peachy, but unfortunately stresses are they're an inevitable part of life, and becoming resilient to them and learning how to adapt and overcome them is what makes us resilient individuals. So we're going to run through now some lifestyle hacks on things to get your body regulated, get your body dealing with these stresses better. And then supplement hacks as well, because that's what both of us are passionate about too. So
for sure. So that's the biggest thing that we focus on here at Purpose Nutritions, and that's what we informed Will, and that's what Will's all about too, is optimizing health. So at Purpose Nutritions, obviously what we always teach is the basics of the nutrition, and then how we can add supplementation around there to benefit you guys. Myself, I use a lot of products, but I'm a busy individual who doesn't stop, who trains very hard, has a kid, life is very stressful. So what I do for myself is going to be completely different from what you guys do in your own lives. But that's why we provide as much education as we can here, lay it all out on the table, and it's up to you guys what you guys choose to do. Whether you buy products or you adapt lifestyle changes, at the end of the day, what we care about is that you guys are doing better and you're actually progressing. That's what counts. So when it comes to lifestyle hacks, before even looking at supplementation, right, there's a lot of things you can do. Like we've talked about, adequate calories, guys. If you're not sure how to diet or how to even apply, what calories you need to eat, first of all, go get help. Go get a coach. If you were to go and start a business and, start new bank accounts and all that, you're not going to do it yourself. You're going to go to an accountant. You're going to go to a lawyer. You're going to go to professionals in the game. So when it comes to your own health and your own nutrition, and you don't know what you're doing, why would you do it yourself? It's a disaster.
It is, and it'll save you months and months and months of spinning your wheels. Honestly, the amount of time that we have people that come to us by the time they've already done a year, 2 years of spinning their wheels, of yo-yo dieting, of doing extreme diets, losing 5 kilos, jumping off the bandwagon, binging, gaining 7, and this constant yo-yoing of weight. And we just see, so the first step is eating towards your body's calorie demands, eating nearer to your energy demands. And hell, if you've been someone who's been dieting for a long time, if you've been, there's no harm in going to that caloric maintenance and sitting there for a good few weeks, giving your body the resources it needs for hormonal regulation, give it the resources to rebuild and repair, and then worry about doing a diet or bulk, whatever your next goal is. So eating enough calories, very, very important. Now, my favourite one is looking at just simple stuff that anyone can do. Getting up in the morning, getting some light exposure is really, really important. That kickstarts the whole circadian rhythm for the day, gets your body set up, primed for basically your cortisol pattern to be perfect. So get up, get some light exposure, and while you're at it, ideally some movement, exercise of any form is fantastic. Even that's going for a brisk walk in the morning, going for a jog, going to gym, it doesn't really matter. It's about getting up, getting moving, getting blood going, getting fluid going, hydrating yourself as well, getting plenty of fluid intake in that first few hours. So you want to, get up, hydrate, get some sun exposure, get moving, exercise, get your body moving. That's going to set our body up perfectly to really kickstart the day. And anyone who's ever, who's ever gone for a run in the morning, say, and then not done it the next day, and you'll feel drastically different throughout the day. The reason why is how it's positively impacting your stress hormones throughout the day. So that's a really profound and simple thing that anyone watching this can just go home right now and just do. Tomorrow morning, wake up, go walk the dog, get some sun on your skin, and away you go. Eating, and then ideally eating towards what our maintenance calories are. And then in the afternoon, do the exact opposite. We're trying to minimise light exposure. Anyone with a smartphone, if you look on the brightness settings, there's a night mode on almost every tablet, iPhone, laptops as well. Trying to turn those brightnesses down and put them on night mode as well will help huge amounts as well. So limiting light in the evenings, probably after about 6 p.m. or so, trying to really wind down our light exposure, super important. So that's more the evening half, and then finally around that sleep part is where we start talking more supplement hacks, I suppose. So throughout the day we've done our lifestyle hacks, we've done our getting up, going for a walk, eating enough calories, getting our light exposure. In the evenings, getting less light exposure, putting our filters on our phones, making sure that we're dimming our blue lights. And then come evening time, ideally this is when I see the most benefit from the supplement protocol. Yes. So I guess what's your typical sort of evening look like? You're obviously not like myself and love to have a lot of supplements around. I guess how do you sort of use these as part of your routine to help with your busy life to get the most out of it?
Yeah, I'll give a quick overview. So guys, biggest thing, I'll just quickly jump in there as well. Hydration, Will touched on. Guys, a lot of people think they're drinking enough water or any form of fluid, whether it's electrolyte drinks or something like that. People think they get enough fluids in or electrolytes to hydrate themselves. You need 0.033 times your body weight. So no less than 2.7 litres per day. That is what our body utilises off an average 70 kilo weight, is 2.7 litres a day. We expirate that amount of water from our body on an average of 70 kilos. So the heavier you are, the more you're going to utilise in the fluid. So it's super important you're up in that level of 3 litres onwards. But if you want precise numbers, 0.033 times your body weight. Calculate that and that's your number that you need to hit. But hydration's super huge for all biochemical reactions, hormone regulations, transportation, everything that you need. But in terms of my lifestyle, I try and drink 3.5 litres a day. I'm eating 6-7 times a day as well, every 2 to 3 hours. That's my way of regulating not only my metabolism but also my stress hormone. I'm up at 4 a.m. every morning. I go to the gym by 5. I always eat before I train. I'm generally at the gym for 45 to an hour. Now that I'm focusing more on 12-15 hour days here at work. In quieter times, I'm training for a bit longer. I'm in the office by 7. I'm here 7 till 7. Sometimes I'm not leaving here at the HQ till 9 p.m. at night. But my last caffeine hit will be about 2 o'clock. I try and allow 4 hours before going home without any caffeine. That's when I feel the window sort of easing off for myself. And that way I'm not stimulated when I go home. When I go home, it's getting the food in, it's getting a shower, preparing, and just having a little bit of a chill out time with my partner and spending some family time. And then when it comes to bedtime, I'm having my vitamins. I'll generally have Restore. So Restore by Primabolics. I have 4 tablets, which is the full clinical dose. I have 4 because I need that full amount. 2 I've tried, but because of how active I am and the sleep that I get, so by the time if I finish at 9 o'clock, by the time I get to bed it's about 11 o'clock. If I have certain emails to attend to or anything to get back to, sometimes it's midnight. So I'm only getting about 4 to 6 hours. If our newborn baby wakes up, I'm getting less than that. So my stress is quite high. So I use the full clinical dose of the Primabolics Restore. As far as my other vitamins go, I use vitamin D's, I use fish oil, I use a full spectrum Evergen multivitamin, and then that's about it. And I just use a greens powder, which has probiotic strain in there as well. And that's probably my only optimal health around vitamins and minerals and stress support.
Yeah, beautiful. I like the addition of the super greens before bed too as well. Like just getting that last hit of micronutrients to help replenish what you've spent throughout the day, set you up for the next day. Really, that's always a good way of throwing them in. But yeah, definitely. And the four capsules that we're referring to. Anyone who's ever purchased Restore, it's my capsule-based product, and I made that to help people deal. It's got a lot of adaptogenic herbs, and these things help your body adapt to the impacts of stress, like we've been speaking about. Helps you switch off, helps you get deeper sleep, more restful sleep, to restore basically your daily lives, restore your body after the impacts of stress have bombarded you. So it's a really, really crucial, supplement to have to help deal with these things alongside all these lifestyle hacks we've been talking about. So there's now the way that you'll read on that packaging, it says to use 3 at night and 1 in the morning. Where Jarrod's saying is using the full 4 of them at night all together. I also personally go that dosage protocol, and I find anyone who's got a lot going on, whether you're busy parents as well with broken sleep, your shift workers, nurses, paramedics, emergency workers, miners, shift workers of any kind, these people 100% use the 4 capsule serve. It's dosed to be the absolute just be all and end all for stress, and particularly at night, getting into that deep restful sleep as #1 priority. So the full 4 capsule serve I always love using for people when they're first using the product as well. You can by all means use 2 to 3. My partner, she's using 2 to 3, more often than not 3, but some nights only 2. But it's saying that occasionally she has night shift being a nurse, and so she'll use 4 on those nights. And you can vary it up and down, just like your stresses vary up and down throughout your life. So it's a very variable product, but that's one that can tie in beautifully to help your body deal with these stressful lifestyles and become more resilient and bounce back, and actually not just wake up and just barely get by, but actually start thriving and recovering and rebuilding. So that's the supplement side of things that we'd recommend certainly.
Yeah, and you've also got a special little ingredient in there that also coincides with the stress hormone, lemon balm.
Yeah, lemon balm's beautiful as well, and lemon balm and holly basil, actually in particular, and passion flower is a nice one also. These botanicals are really quite nice because they're anti-anxietics for one, so they'll really help if you're someone who struggles with stress and anxiety, mood swings as well. These are really powerful plants for helping to moderate those stress responses to stressful events. So fantastic for those people who really struggle with stress and anxiety. They also happen to boost GABA. Now GABA is a neurotransmitter that is super, super important, particularly when we're stressed all the time. We're in that state of flight or fight. We're in that state of always being on the verge of worrying about something. GABA is basically it's a feel-good hormone. It usually kicks in before bedtime. We get that feeling of it's like you've had a warm shower. That nice, just happy, dopey, calm feeling. we want that neurotransmitter elevated as often as possible, really, and that's something that lemon balm, holy basil, passion flower extract that I've got in that formula all do, and they help to, not only at night but also during the day, really help to just overall dampen that stress response. So they're really good botanicals that you pointed out. They're something that anyone would benefit from, particularly if they're going through some pretty hectic periods in life,
Yeah, and you generally see most individuals who come in who have high stress. They always generally have obviously the trouble sleeping, which passion flower does assist in, but also they're going to have some attributes to anxiety as well. So that's why you can't go past the Restore product for all your stress needs. But I think that pretty well sums up everything regarding our cortisol episode today. Did you have anything else to say?
Mate, I think that's a pretty good wrap up. I think we covered through the overview of how it actually works, symptom pictures to look for yourself, the viewers at home, what to do with lifestyle hacks to fix that as well, and then finally supplementally what to add in if you want to have a really red hot crack at managing and lowering stresses. So I think we've done a good overview here today.
Yeah, guys, and if you guys have any questions regarding cortisol, or if you guys have any questions of what we've discussed in this series, you can either contact us via the comments, DM, email, or even jump over, follow Will at Will Davey, and also Primabolics. This is his pages on Instagram, and you can also give him a message as well and question anything about his products and find out more.
Beautiful, mate. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming, man. Pleasure.
Appreciate it.